China is taking over in the AI race against the US, and American CEOs and leaders are not happy about it. These models are open source, which means anyone can download the weights as long as they have enough hardware. And these models are actually good to the point that they're beating or almost beating OpenAI and Anthropic's best models, but at a fraction of the price. So how did we get here? How did America go from leading in AI research to worrying about finances and IPOs? Well, to answer that, we need to jump back to 2017. Google releases this paper called Attention is All You Need, which introduces this concept called transformers, not that one. They don't really do anything with it besides build Google Translate and probably use it internally, but it doesn't really take the world by storm. In 2018, OpenAI look at this transformer thing and say, hey, that's pretty neat, and they build something called a GPT, a generative pre-trained transformer. GPT-1, it's used for natural language processing, text generation. I'm sure you've all used GPTs before. This one has 117 million parameters. Parameters are kind of a stand-in for how big, powerful, expensive a model is. Generally, more parameters means the model is smarter. In 2019, they built GPT-2 with 1.5 billion parameters, and then in 2020, they built GPT-3 with 175 billion parameters. They noticed that the bigger you make these models, the smarter they get, which was kind of surprising at the time because generally, the bigger you make models, the more they would overfit and actually the dumber they would be. But one thing changes. They no longer make this fully open. The weights are closed and only accessible through a paid API. In 2022, they completely venture into the world of closed AI. OpenAI is now closed AI, and they release ChatGPT, GPT 3.5. I'm sure you've heard of this, and it takes the world by storm. They get 1 billion users in the span of just 3 months, and the world will never be the same. Everyone wants a piece of this, and before we jump into the future, let's circle back to 2021 where we introduce a new player. Anthropic is founded by a bunch of ex-OpenAI employees, namely Dario Amodei, who you might have seen from one of those papers earlier. They build Claude, Google builds Bard, and then on the open side, we have Meta building Llama, although I think that was not supposed to be opened and it might have only been because of a leak. In either case, they opened it, so kudos to them. And then finally, we have this French company, Mistral, building, I genuinely don't know what they built, but that's just to say that they're also there. It's not just a 2-country game, it's global phenomena. Everyone's wanting to get in on the action. You will not hear anything else about Mistral. It is not all sunshine and rainbows though, because at the end of 2023, there's this weird coup that happens where Ilya ends up getting Sam fired from the board. We have Mira Murati, the CTO, being an interim CEO, and I don't know where to put this, but the weirdest thing happens. The ex-Twitch CEO ends up being the next interim CEO of OpenAI. In either case, it doesn't really matter because Sam Altman comes back in literally just 3 days. If you want the full story, I think you should definitely watch this video by Run the Numbers. It's super interesting. In either case, the people who orchestrated this thing ended up getting, well, not fired, but they just leave, right? I don't know if you'd want to be in the same company as the person that you tried to get fired, which starts to show cracks forming in this whole American AI saga. In 2024, not a whole lot happens. We have a bunch of incremental improvements. Tons of models come out. We also get the era of ChatGPT wrappers. Everyone wants to build this thin little app on top of ChatGPT and say that it's the smartest thing in the world. Usually they get acquired for billions of dollars, which is great for the people who founded them. We have Google renaming Bard to Gemini, and also at this point, I think losing pretty much every single person who had worked on that original AI paper to different companies. And on the open side, we have Meta releasing Llama 3 and also acquiring a bunch of different companies, paying people hundreds of millions of dollars and not really doing anything with it. I mean, I haven't really heard of Meta in the top of the AI news for a while now. So once again, America is starting to show its cracks. Like, they're not innovating a whole lot. But that's about to change because DeepSeek comes in and throws a wrench into things. This model is 671 billion parameters, and it costs less than $6 million to train. It is super cheap, while at the same time being just as capable as some of the top models out there. The NASDAQ falls by 3%, and Sam realizes, hey, maybe we should release a couple open models, and they end up releasing 2. Anthropic's answer to this is just build better tools. they come out with Claude Code, and I think this is their ChatGPT moment. It's a super useful tool. People realize, hey, we can actually build things from scratch. A bunch of people pay them $200 a month to vibe code, where they don't actually write any code. They just let Claude take the wheel, and they use it so much that Anthropic starts to run out of capacity, and they have a bunch of incidents. Like, a lot of the time, Anthropic or Claude just doesn't work. Despite that, their valuation goes up from like 15 billion to 50 to like 300 and now $965 billion. And these high valuations don't come out of nowhere. I mean, they're because companies are paying out of the wazoo to use them. So they start to realize maybe we shouldn't be using Claude this much. OpenAI's answer to this? Sora. It's an AI TikTok slop generator, which no one was asking for, and they discontinue it in the span of just 6 months. 2026 rolls around and Anthropic releases Mythos. It's so dangerous that the US government bans it, then they unban it, and then Anthropic makes it more expensive than their already expensive models. And on the other side, we see ex-OpenAI companies valued at tens of billions of dollars before even releasing a single product. Thinking Machines just released a model a couple weeks ago, and it's pretty underwhelming. And on the other hand, we have Ilya's company SSI raising $5 billion without even announcing a single thing. And that brings us to today, where we have Kimi K3 surpassing benchmarks from the most dangerous model at a fraction of the cost. So how did China overtake the US? Well, 4 things happened in that history. Firstly, we introduced GPU sanction, which inadvertently made China better. They had to be smarter with how they acquired GPUs. They were super expensive. How they used GPUs, they had to get them from a bunch of different countries through weird ways. And what ended up happening is that these models got really good because they had to innovate, come up with new architectures, new technologies that American models didn't need to. OpenAI could just spend an extra $100 billion, give that to NVIDIA. NVIDIA would say, hey, here's another million GPUs. China couldn't do the same, so they had to come up with things like mixtures of experts or Kimi linear. Another thing you might have heard of is distillation. It's this idea of essentially reverse engineering larger models. And funnily enough, this also came from Google. How it works is you essentially have the same inputs and the same outputs, and instead of learning or trying to copy the weights of another model, you're training to match the outputs of that teacher model, which can end up resulting in some weird things like this, where you have Kimi K3 saying that it's Claude because it learned that from the teacher. Anthropic has kind of called out these companies for distilling their models, but at the same time, it's not necessarily the case. I mean, to distill Fable, to get the same capabilities of Fable, you need to pay Anthropic a ton of money, which would get really expensive really fast and also be very slow. So it's unlikely that at this point, they're still using distillation to get as good as they are. So what else is there? Well, like I was mentioning, there's a ton of infighting and just profit max. I mean, you have Elon Musk suing OpenAI, you have the Department of Defense banning Anthropic models, you have all this circular financing deals trying to make billions and billions of dollars between each other, just washing the money around. You have Anthropic with its absolutely insane pricing models, which they actually get sued over. And then you have OpenAI doing a bunch of lobbying and just trying to get their for-profit company now to IPO, or Anthropic also getting this $1 trillion IPO. It doesn't make any sense. And finally, a bunch of companies are just trying to DIY. NVIDIA and AMD have built tools for running local models. Companies are realizing that they can build for way cheaper by using local models. You have like Snowflake, Airbnb, DoorDash, Coinbase. Pretty much every big company out there is trying to experiment with this. And turns out by fine-tuning these open source models, you can actually make them better and cheaper than the generic state-of-the-art proprietary ones from these closed companies. So who are the winners? Well, for one, you. If you are using any models, open source models will always push the frontier forward. They will challenge these companies to actually innovate and build better things instead of just trying to make the most money. Additionally, obviously China, they're getting a bunch of investment. Researchers are moving there to work on the state-of-the-art stuff, so naturally having better models helps them. And finally, NVIDIA. I mean, no matter what, these guys are going to print money. They still have the best hardware, and so everyone is using them. And yeah, I don't know how they will lose. Although there's some sus financial stuff happening. Who's losing? Well, naturally, all of these proprietary AI companies, but surprisingly, potentially also China. For one, these models might be benchmarks, which essentially means cheating to train for the test as opposed to just training your general skills. Benchmarks are not the real world, so you can be really good on the test, but fail at everyday tasks. And this is something that will just come out as time progresses. Additionally, China is considering adding export controls, which I think will actually end up hurting them in the long term, although only time will tell. And that's Targeting Tuesday, everyone. Thank you for watching this. I glossed over a bunch of stuff. I think I could go way longer. There's like the 6 Tiger AI companies. There's other open source AI models like Gemma, Qwen, GLM. I could easily do an entire other video on this, but hopefully you found it interesting. And if you want me to do that, let me know. Of course, like, share, click that subscribe button, hit the bell, all that good stuff. And with that, this is Pritham signing off. And until next time, see you later. Goodbye.